Hi, everybody. I'm Chris McHale. I'm co-founder and CEO of SPKAA, and I'm here with Ed Chung, one of my favorites. Ed is what is officially now a district manager for the applications engineering group. Did I get that right, Ed?
Don't know.
Oh,
All
okay.
right, cut this out.
We're not too big on titles here, but anyway. But what Ed is responsible for? Well, why don't you say what you're responsible for, Ed, just so people know where you're from and what you're doing.
Yeah, I work with directly with engineering groups and managers and product development teams in order to ensure that we always say we want to help them bring products to market faster. But what I also do on the flip side is, hey, I remove things that slow them down.
Yes, great. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I'll add on to what you just said. You have you and your team, not just you, of course, have huge expertise in the applications and the systems, tools, if you want, that engineers use to develop product and service and bring it to market. Fair? Yeah.
Yes.
So what we were starting to talk about earlier that I thought would be a great topic for today is the whole area of data in product and service development companies. And so what we were starting to talk about before we were recording this, but let's go back and rehash it, is the whole idea of what we could do is paint a current state of the world right now from what I see as a CEO talking to other CEOs, and then what the ultimate desired outcome would be if one could wave a magic wand. And we did do a bunch of this work for ourselves, so we can actually speak from experience. So what I see in terms of the lay of the land out there with data is that lots of smaller and mid-market companies, I'm going to exclude the enterprise for right now, have spent a lot of time and effort, really good time and effort, making sure that they have systems in place to help manage their work. Yeah. So you may have, if you're in a product company, you may have a product data management system with design authoring tool. You may have another set of systems that manage your software development. You may have another set of systems that manage all your financial data. If you make product, you're going to have an ERP or something like that that's managing that aspect of it. If you're more on the service side, you'll have some kind of system that manages your service workers, if you will, and the work that they're doing, workflow there. You'll have a financial set of systems, and so on. You get the picture. So CEOs and their leadership have spent a bunch of time doing that and have done it pretty well, I think, in some cases. And what I see, and tell me what you think, where it's left them, most of them, when I talk to them is, I've got all of these different systems, and they're doing all this really great work for my people in these various areas and departments. And they do decent reporting out of each of those systems, but I don't have any holistic view or dashboard, if you want to use a fun term, of what's going on in my company. I can't relate these different silos and the data from these different silos in a really quick and efficient way. And when you can't do that quickly and efficiently, you end up not having those insights. So that's kind of how I see it from here. What do you see, Ed?
I think it's slightly different words, but it's the same thing, right? I think traditionally, we hired a person, right? Didn't you? You hired a person and you said, hey, what's your job? Your full-time job is every single month, grab these 18 Excel files, copy and paste them here.
Yep.
Give me my graph, right? And
Yep.
simplifying, but it's something like that. So I'm always, to say that you have all these disparate systems, and either you're spending those managers, right? It depends on title and company. That manager is spending too much time pulling out all the information, or their information is delayed because, hey, they've got this thing, Johnny updates the reports once every month. So therefore, I'm 1 month, behind in my visibility. So I definitely see that.
Yep. And then just to add on to that last thing you said there, we talk about lots of people talk about this, leading indicators and lagging indicators of information. And so the lagging is usually where people go first. Like, what's my P&L look like? What's my gross margin look like? What's my inventory? What are all my product related data look like last month? now I'm looking at it now, right? But the leading indicators are the ones that really allow you to plan and actually take action and make decisions that can affect your company, your business better.
I think one of the challenges they're also having now is that this isn't new, right? That this idea of like collecting data, and so I don't want to say everyone did this, but for some situations, they ask let's say an engineer, they ask an engineer, what kind of data can our PDM, PLM, what kind of data can our system generate? You know, time of this, time of this, time of this, every single action, every single touch, and they recorded all of this data because the engineer thought possibly correctly, possibly not, I don't know, but engineers love collecting data. I want to collect
right.
data. I collected all this data for you, and now my CEO has all this data, but it's not meaningful because it's not. It might actually be too much data, right? I think maybe somewhere in there. Let me say it that way. Like I think lots of people have too much data.
Yep. That's right.
And so somewhere in there, how do you go from, we talk internally, we always talk about business intelligence, right? But it's not just business knowledge, it's not just data, it's being able to digest that data into something actionable. So,
in our own case, we're a services company, not as much of a product company, although we do have product, but so our product is our people's intelligence and their time, really, to get right down to it, right? And so we ourselves spent, well, I'll speak for myself, probably the last year or year and a half doing this exact same exercise in our own company, where we said, okay, I had reports, I had dashboards of this and, reports of that and graphs of this and graphs of that. And they were really good and they gave me good information, but it was as if in order to, how do I put this? In order to get the right insights out of that data, I had to go through a bunch of mental push-ups to correlate things in my head or ask somebody, can you do this for me or do that for me? And so then I would get to some information that was helpful where these different disparate data sources were correlated. But number one, it took too much time. So it wasn't immediate, wasn't real time. That was the first issue. But the bigger issue, which I really didn't see at first, was that my people that were helping me run this company didn't have access to that data in a real-time fashion. And because they didn't see it, and they didn't really know what was going on, they couldn't draw the right insights and make the right decisions. And that once we had all of this pulled together, we used PowerBI to do that. You could use Tableau or something else too, but once we went through that work of doing the data engineering, creating and making sure that the data got to where it needed to go, and then using PowerBI in this case to create very simple, straightforward visuals on what was going on, and then share those, right, with the people in the company, and then all work off that one dashboard and say, okay, what's going on here or what's going on there? And then you're all on the same page, so to speak. And it sounds so simple when I say it, and yet I don't see this being done. I mean, even we were really doing it for a while, and now we're doing it. I'm, thrilled. But what do you think about that? Because you're on the other side where you didn't have it either, and then I started to do it and then share it with you. What was your experience with that?
I like to think of this as two separate problems, right? I split it in half. And one half is collecting data, right? And I think that is a large but easy problem, right? Hypothetically, I can hire, what was it? I think his name was Johnny. We could hire Johnny to collect data in Excel, write it in a notebook, and then type it in another Excel. It's a big problem, but collecting the data is something that we can do and is super important. But I would like it. I think the big change here was in the past 1.5 years. The flip side of that is the asking the right questions, right? We start asking the right questions of, what is our EBITDA? What is our cost of goods sold, so to speak, right? We use different terms. And when you ask those questions and you get to, one of the things you just said was not everyone knows the answers to those things, right? Because as a CEO, as a company, right? What is the thing that's slowing us down? What is the delay? I think in in places I work with, right? It's always like, what is the thing that's causing my delay in product release? And that question right there, ask the question first, then
Right.
ask the question, and even generate that data manually. Hey, what caused the delay in this one thing? It took me 45 days to research it, but I found this thing. That's not useful. But now I know what question was asked. I know how to answer that question 45 days ago. If I
Right.
know how to answer that question 45 days ago, I bet I can put in some Power BI graphs and get you that every one day.
Right. Right.
Now you're making a big difference. That's
Right.
why I think
No.
those two things,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
The question, the answer, or data.
Yeah. And I was just talking to somebody who's I think she's a COO of a services company. Happens to be financial services, but anyway, she was saying kind of the same thing. She was saying, we have all this data. We have Excel spreadsheets, and we have a system over here that collects data, and we have a CRM that collects data, and we have, we use QuickBooks or whatever the various things are. It kind of doesn't matter, right? But she had this issue, and she was drowning in it. She was drowning in not being able to correlate this data or understand what insights to pull from it because there was too much. It was in these different places. And then, as you know, the minute you get into Excel spreadsheets too, which sometimes you can't avoid, but the minute you get into those, there's a delay, or that there's always a question about, accuracy of data and so on and so forth. But what I was getting at here is that she explains this whole situation, and then she kind of said, well, how do we start even? And I said, well, you start by exactly what you said. I said, what questions do you need answers to? What are the most burning questions you have right now, like today? If I knew the answer to X, I would feel better. And I would actually be able to make a decision on something else but my gut, which is what you end up doing then, right? And that kind of took this whole effort down to simple steps. And that's the other thing is I think people get overwhelmed by, oh, what do I have to do here? When really, it's just like what you said. Give me one question. What question do you want to answer today? And just work on that question. Pull that in, figure out where the data is, pull it into something that's visual, and then go on to the next question, and then go on to the next one, and keep pulling them into the same place. That's important, so that you have, and some of this is like kind of psychological, isn't it? I was struck by that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. It's like, how to say it? If you see it on the table, then you use it. And if you see, I was just talking to someone else, right? The KitchenAid mixer. The mixer's on the shelf. I don't need a mixer. But if it's on the table, somehow it gets used every day.
Right.
And it's the same thing. If you have to go get your data everywhere.
You won't.
I love using dashboards all the time. A separate dashboard, if necessary, but one dashboard would be great.
Yes. Oh, and sometimes you need separate ones. It gets too busy. But here's the key thing. Here's the psychological part. If it's all in the same place, where I go to this website or I go to this page, and at least it's all available on that page, that's a big step forward. But then even better, I may say, oh, look at this thing over here and this thing over here that may be correlated. Those would be interesting. And of course, then you can start to use things like machine learning to look for those correlations for you. If you have enough data and it's complicated enough, those are our tools we use, right? Where we say, okay, let's at least gather it. It's in a data lake, and then you can apply. Usually, cloud is easiest, AWS or Azure, but you can apply machine learning cloud tools to start to look for those great pieces of information or correlations for you. Know what I mean?
Yes.
Well, great. Oh, go ahead.
What happened to your friend who was drowning in all of the data?
She's engaging with us at this point just to see if there's ways we can help her, and we're going to start with that one burning question. See if we can answer the one burning question, and then move on from there, which I think was a relief to her because I think she thought this was going to be an overwhelming project. But like all such things, you can take it a bite at a time and get somewhere with it. Well, we're probably out of time, Ed, and I know you have things to do, but thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, and sharing your insights on data insights or data engineering. Sorry, that was bad.
I think it's great. I'm happy to talk about these things. I don't know. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Great.
So,
Goodbye.
bye.